Hello and welcome. It's 12 noon, and if I sound a little weird, it's just because I just got back from the dentist to have a crown put in, so I'm still a little numb. But far be it from that to have me not take a chance to jump on the latest in the long line of controversial articles that have appeared in the tabloids of tabletop role-playing games. I want to thank Aaron the Pendantic for directing me towards this article. This is the article that came out today from Dicebreakers about 5th edition. One of a long line of articles about what 5th edition is and is not. And this article is an opinion article on Dicebreakers from Hylke Hort Langhort. HYLKEJORRITLANGHOURT. HYLKE Hylke? What the is that even a name? Okay, I don't know. It sounds German maybe, or Norwegian or Dutch. Anyways, he wrote an article about 5th edition based upon his experience with 5th edition and how 5th edition is not about combat, but is more and more drifting towards storytelling because of online. So I read through the article once while I was in the dentist chair getting drilled. And I do agree with one thing he said, but it's at the very bottom of the game. And it's important to look at what parts of D&D you enjoy and decide if the RPG is the right fit for the kind of games you want to play. And 2, he talks about the fact that in order to really understand what 5th edition was about and not about, he played other games that were more about narration and less about combat, and came to the realization that, hey, yeah, there are other games. And if you're trying to find D&D games that do what D&D is not supposed to do, maybe you should look at other games. So there we go. One of the very first individuals to say that. Now, there are a lot of points in this that I'm going to be contentious about, of course. He starts it off, of course, by comparing it to all the online Dungeons and Dragons performances and how that has changed the environment of D&D thanks to Critical Role and Adventure Zone and all these other things. People now have this new image of that Dungeons and Dragons is more about storytelling and less about combat. And the people who play Dungeons and Dragons weren't really interested in combat right now. Okay, first and foremost, nobody who has played 5th edition for longer than a day would say that people who come to play Dungeons & Dragons aren't interested in the combat anymore. First and foremost, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is literally about combat and how effective you can be in combat and how much damage and how many cool things you can do in combat. Literally at 4th level, your spellcasters have infinite spells. Your warlock can do a D10 plus charisma every round for free with Elder's Blast. Your wizard can do D8 and slow somebody down every round for free with Ray of Frost. And your cleric can set something on fire every round or give somebody a plus D4 to a skill roll for free. You start in 5th edition with way more hit points and way more free stuff than you ever started in before. All you need to do is take a nap and eat a sandwich for 20 minutes and you can recover from swimming in hot lava and be fine. So anybody who plays D&D 5th edition over the last... Look, I've run and played this game since it came out. I play tested it. I can tell you there's nobody sitting at a D&D table that isn't being filmed that is there to roleplay. I have encountered more murder hobo scenarios and more combat crazy players in 5th edition than I ever did. And it's again that we only storytell in 5th edition, and you guys who played before us didn't storytell. And 5th edition is all about storytelling. You can tell I'm having trouble speaking because of the Novocaine. And that's bullshit, okay? So stop that right there. We storytell as much, if not more, than you guys are doing now. You try being a combat effective when you're having 9 strength and an 8 wisdom, when you have to roll 3d6 for your each stat and a d4 for your hit points. And if you're lucky, you have 1. Yeah, no, okay? Every 5th edition game I've run, every 5th edition game I've played, it is always about combat. Everybody, there's so many murder hobos, so many people going out of their way to get themselves in stupid situations so they can show off how combat effective their character is. I mean, literally, the last 5e game I played in started with this first level guy trying to pick a fight with a Titan just to see if he could. So yeah, no, sorry. Stop comparing it to what you see on YouTube, because that's a fucking show. And stop saying things like 5th edition's about storytelling, because it's not. It's about combat. Then he goes into how he was going through Tomb of Annihilation, and people were struggling with the fact that there was so much combat in Tomb of Annihilation and so little chance to roleplay. Okay, first, it's a hex crawl. I ran Tomb of Annihilation for a year and a half. There are tons of experiences available for roleplay if you actually read it. Okay? Of all the D&D adventures that 5th edition has made, this is the most D&D. It literally starts with a dinosaur race. It literally starts with a dinosaur race. And one of the dinosaurs is named Banana Candy. And the player characters can race dinosaurs. Please do not tell me that there is no role-playing opportunities in Tomb of Annihilation. You can run into the Monkey King. You can have politics with the Thavians and the other people that are there. You can deal with the crazy goblins. There is so many role-playing experiences. I ran it for a year and a half. The jungle part was everybody's favorite part. Even when we were going through the slog part of the actual end dungeon, there were so many opportunities to roleplay, so many opportunities to talk with the dead gods, so many opportunities to deal with the fact that people were dead and couldn't come back. So yeah, if you were saying that all your Tomb of Annihilation thing was just combat, and that, you had to rush through things and try to come up with ways to make it less combat, and people were complaining because there was too much combat. Well, literally, it's in the name, Tomb of Annihilation. It's an homage to Isle of Dread and Tomb of Horrors. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of combat because the whole meta plot is the death curse, trying to get to the death curse and stop it from being fulfilled, and the race of all the different factions that are trying to get there first and capitalize on this power vacuum and stop a Sarasak or help a Sarasak with his mission and deal with the fact that there are 9 gods that have been dead and all these major NPCs are dead and not coming back from the day. It's basically a post-apocalypse scenario. Plus, it's got dinosaur racing. How can you say there is no role-playing in Tomb of Annihilation when it is literally dinosaur racing? And there is nothing more D&D than a giant jungle filled with dinosaurs, aliens, intelligent ape people, lost civilizations. It's Sinbad. It's every Ray Harryhausen game thing ever. It's Indiana Jones. It's pirates. Okay. And finally, in posting an article about what D&D is and isn't, aren't you a little late to the game, sir? It's 2021, and the game's been out since 2015. So you're a little late to the party with talking about what D&D is and isn't. And, if there's any main issue with all these articles about what people wanted from D&D and what people expected from D&D and how D&D didn't do this or how D&D doesn't do that, it's because, A, you're continuously comparing it to what you see online on Critical Role and Adventure Zone and No Rolled Bars, and that's a show, okay? Even if it is not scripted, even if it is played live as you see it, it's still a show. And because it's still a show, everybody involved in Critical Role understands that they have to capture the audience's attention each and every episode and maintain that same level of interaction that you would see on like NCIS or The Blacklist or a soap opera. So everything is pushed to the 100th percent on those shows. Plus, Critical Role is all professional actors. And most of these other shows with performance D&D people are actors in some form. So they are trained to work the camera. They are trained to interact with you. They are trained to engage you. They are trained to push things 110% for the viewing audience. So you cannot expect a Dungeons & Dragons actual game with actual people to be like what you see on YouTube. That's your first mistake. Your second mistake is you keep trying to fix D&D. There's literally a part of his argument where he talks about how they had to homebrew stuff. A homebrew campaign where about combat and how he switched to milestones and stuff like that. And again, you're trying to fix D&D. 5th edition. You're trying to make it something it's not. And that's why we have these people complaining now, because they're complaining that they want D&D to be something it's not. And now there's these stupid surveys that Wizards of the Coast is putting out because they realize they're losing their target audience because D&D is not what people think it's supposed to be. It's Dungeons and Dragons. And it's not anything else. It's not a storytelling game. It's not a major league role-playing game. It's not what you see online. It's Dungeons and Dragons. And it's always going to be Dungeons and Dragons. Even if we say 5th edition is not Dungeons and Dragons compared to, say, 1st and 2nd edition, it's still the same basic ideas. So stop trying to fix 5th edition D&D. If 5th edition D&D is not doing what you think it's supposed to do, Wizards of the Coast is going to keep putting out these articles. And we've seen already how that has affected the game because of everything that's coming out after Witchlight. They implemented these changes in Tasha's. They made them firm in Witchlight. And going forward, we're going to see more of this mutation of what we think Dungeons & Dragons is, because Wizards of the Coast thinks this is what people want based upon the surveys. But a lot of the people who are taking the surveys don't even play the game, or they expect the game to be more like what they see online. And it's only when you play other games or play D&D for longer than one session you realize that D&D is not what you see online. D&D is D&D. But it's got to keep changing because Wizards of the Coast thinks their target audience wants it to be a certain way. And the target audience, most of whom don't even actually play, are taking these surveys because D&D isn't doing what they want it to do. So whatever it is we're going to see in 2024, it ain't going to be D&D. It's going to be post-Witchlight, post-Strixhaven weirdness. Yes, Wizards of the Coast can call whatever they want Dungeons & Dragons, so yes, it will be Dungeons & Dragons, but it's going to be this weird, interactive storytelling, non-combat resolution stuff that just isn't, and then people are going to complain because it's still not what they thought it should be. And of course, it's always this, oh, well, we're only role-playing now, and you guys didn't role-play then, so you don't understand, and this is what D&D is, and you didn't play D&D right until just now. But no, we did role-play in the past. We probably role-played more than you do. I've seen less role-playing in 5th edition than I have in all the other editions and all the other games I've run. I've seen more murder hoboing and more power gaming and more just chaotic stupidity out of players in 5th edition than I have in any other iteration of the game and any other game I played. If you want storytelling, play a storytelling game. Play Fate. Play Powered by the Apocalypse. Play White Wolf. Play Mass. Play Gumshoe. Play Kids on Bikes. Don't play D&D. And stop trying to fix D&D. Stop trying to make 5th edition something it's not. This comes down to the main issue with 5th edition that has been the main issue with 5th edition since it came out and since Critical Role and all these other things muddied the waters of what 5th edition D&D is or isn't. And instead of playing it like it's written, instead of just embracing what 5th edition is, you keep trying to change it. And here's again, you keep trying to change it. You tried to change Tomb of Annihilation. instead of just embracing the fact that what Tomb of Annihilation is, which is a jungle hex crawl with every single solitary jungle movie cliche in it. Dinosaurs, talking apes, lost civilizations. But I do agree that when he gets to the bottom of his point, he says, and again, it's important to look at what parts of D&D you enjoy most and decide if that RPG is the right fit for the kind of game you want to play. And maybe if you want to do storytelling-centric games, instead of trying to fix 5th edition and make some 5th edition something it's not, which has been my main issue with every 5th edition game I've played and most of the 5th edition games I've run, play a different game. Play a different game. Get your eyes out there. Look on the shelves of your friendly local game store, that's Cess Games and Anime here in Ventura, and acknowledge that there are other games that do what you want and probably do it better than D&D. Stop trying to fix D&D. So the point of this guy's article is most D&D players are ignoring one of the central gameplay ideas, and that's a good thing? No, it's not, because again, you're trying to make D&D something it's not. It is literally a combat game. It is literally a character optimization power fantasy game. Look at all the builds online. None of them are about role-playing. I know everybody complains about the transgender half-orc cupcake baker characters, but look at the actual builds for characters. Even look at the builds for the Critical Role characters. They are combat machines. 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons is built to emulate high fantasy, power fantasy, min-maxing character optimization. Spellcasters literally have infinite 0-level spells at first level, and you can recover from swimming in lava by just taking a 20-minute nap and eating a sandwich. So, yeah, don't complain about 5th edition D&D, accept it is what it is, and if you don't like it, stop trying to pigeonhole it, stop trying to square peg round hole it, stop trying to make 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons something it's not. Play a different game. Play a different game. If you want storytelling, play a storytelling game. If you want to play 5th edition, play 5th edition as it's written and just understand and appreciate that that's what it is. Oh, there wasn't enough storytelling in Tomb of Annihilation. There was tons of opportunity for storytelling in Tomb of Annihilation. If you didn't tell a story using Tomb of Annihilation, you were running it wrong. Anyways, that's my reaction to this article/video that Aaron did. Thanks, Aaron, for pointing this out to me. And I know this is a topic that I've gone over 1,000 times, and I'll go over it 1,000 times more. And if I sound weird, I apologize. Remember, I just had oral surgery, so yeah, I'm sure I'm slurring my words, and I probably repeated myself, and I don't know, I'm a little stoned, so I'm sorry. Anyways, this has been the OGGM. If you appreciate the words that are coming out of my mouth, let me know. If you don't and think I should shut up, let me know. If you agree with me about 5th edition and what this guy's talking about, let me know. If you think I'm completely wrong, let me know. And above all, please subscribe and support me because I need to pay for this oral surgery I just had. Now get out of my Tomb of Annihilation.